Hi, and welcome to Broker Tools, where we unpack the tools, systems, and strategies that help brokers optimize the way you work. I'm Katie, your host, and today we are diving into one of the biggest challenges and opportunities for any growing broker business, and that is finding the right team members. Joining me for this conversation is Christian Patterson from Auctus Coaching. Christian has spent many years in the broker world, first as a mortgage broker, then in operations management before launching Auctus Coaching, where he now helps brokers scale their systems and processes. Working with good people, doing good things in the world of finance is something near and dear to Christian. And we have a bad habit, just nerding out together. So this intro is just in honor of having an intro, because that's what I do with all the other podcast guests. However, Christian and I, when we did this recording, we just riffed and we went straight into conversation. So I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Christian. As always, please feel free to share your feedback.
It's always remember our three methodologies that we care about the most in Auctus Coaching is process. Then secondary to that is technology, getting the most out of your technology. And that's where you and I have brainstormed a lot, whether it's either integrating two systems into each other or getting the most out of your existing system. I think I've seen in my tenure, 20 years of mortgage broking, or been in the industry for that long, that brokers just get this shiny ball syndrome where sometimes they think a new piece of technology is going to solve all problems, where sometimes it's a process change. And I think sometimes that's a harder thing for the human behavior, is to actually change the way you've been doing things, or you've done things for so long, because when you've done something a certain way for so long and it's worked, then when you've got to try and flip it on its head and try and do something a different way for a better outcome seems a little bit too hard. Where the idea of a piece of technology is going to solve all the problems, I'm always on the fence of that, where I try and really work through the change management of the human behavior. But if you get the first two things right, then I kind of come into the people aspect. And I think that's the most exciting time we see with businesses that are scaling rapidly. I think we're very fortunate in mortgage broking. We get trail income, which can allow us to be a little bit more complacent than other industries. Where in other industries, if you didn't have trail income, you've got to keep evolving. And I think because we get that, sometimes we can get a little bit, a bit of stagnation. And that's where we really try and help brokers go back to basics sometimes. Let's, not reinvent the wheel. Let's get back to basics, get that solid foundation, and then actually try and build out a strategy to evolve and grow and scale a lot quicker. And I think I asked the question the other day, what would you like? A simple week with no surprises, or a chaotic week with massive results? What do you think most brokers said?
You'd hope they don't, as in, I guess, a chaotic week with massive results, but
that's what they all wanted. Chaotic weeks with massive results. Where I'm a bit more of a person, I love to have structure, because if you have structure, then you can set yourself up for success, because you've got a plan and you're sticking to the plan. Where these chaotic weeks, it's great when you have them, but I just don't think it's sustainable long term.
True. And even as we're talking, so I can see the nuggets of wisdom, what we're talking about. This is like a discussion that I'm literally saying. But that, as in that chaos energy, it drives a lot of people, as in it. But it burns you out just as hard.
Totally. You can only, it's kind of, we talk about the treadmill effect, right? You can keep turning up that dial, but eventually you're going to fall off.
Your capacity as a human is only so much. I call it the tank of worry. So you have this tank, and there's only so many things you can worry about, whether it's family, it's work, it's life, it's health, it's all those little tanks. And so your tank of worry associated with the chaos of your work can only be so much, because you have to look after all these other tanks as well. And if this is where all your focus is, then everything else that may be more important, such as family and health, can fall off the wayside.
Totally.
And so this is where your whole systems, process, people.
I think there's we notice a really big change for people is actually when they realize that sometimes when they build systems and processes, the best thing that they can do is step out the way and let their team do it. But I think it makes them feel a little bit lost because they're like, what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do? I'm supposed to get in there and help. But, if you ask most of their team members, they'll say it's actually better off when the broker or the person steering the ship is not actually in the ship. They're, at the top, actually seeing the next vision rather than getting in and doing the work. And I think that's when you've invested the time in doing that, that's the best thing you can do is get out the way and let them go.
And I guess as a coach, that's probably where you can fit them in, because then you can help them redirect their focus, because they need another thing to do. They need another high pressure thing.
Totally. I think the biggest thing with everybody with growth is they forget about where to focus their energy. And I think there's a lot of low-hanging fruit in businesses where I think a lot of brokers get into the industry for two main reasons. One, that they like to network and be a people person, because it's part of this industry. You need to get build really strong relationships and bonds, whether it's internal with your team members, whether it's external with customers, BDMs, aggregators. So they love the relationship side of things. And then secondly, they love the problem solving side of things. And then the problem they have is when they're in that treadmill effect stage, they're not doing any of them particularly well. The wheels will keep moving. But if I really get down to it, is what do they like to do? They'll have one of those two passions. And then what we're trying to do is get them to focus on that passion. If you want to be the problem solver, that's fantastic. Then build systems and a team around you so that you can solve more problems, whether it's credit or other bigger problems. Or if you want to be the networker, okay, fantastic. Build a team around you so you can go out there and build those, human connections and those relationships. But it's quite easy to forget about all of those things when you're trying to just keep your head above water. I think a lot of people are always trying to keep their head above water. And I think now leading into the, probably the Christmas period or any period where you take a break over Easter, it's a great time to get a hard reset and think about what's really important. And I think, talking about what you mentioned earlier about having more time, like our philosophy working with clients is to get more time every day. What you choose to do with your time is up to you. You might choose to grow your business and write more, or you might choose to do the things that you like. And lots of brokers have these plans around, they'll just hit this next milestone and then everything will, be all right. But they're always continually reaching and they never actually either hit the milestone and do what they're going to do because they haven't got that structure in place. And I think that's probably a little bit scary. I don't think that, the idea of going away on a holiday and being stuck on your phone or your laptop is something that you want to be thinking about in the next 10 or 15 years' time. You want to be able to go away and be present and enjoy those little celebrations with your nearest and dearest, I think.
Yeah. And following what you're saying around having intentions and systems in place for that, it's one of those things. And I think you're finding this and I'm finding that, like recently, we both had family situations that were chaotic and we've had to shut things down. Being able to have those systems in place means that you have everything to help you and your family during those times.
Totally. I think about having, we're trying to help brokers move away from having a job, and brokers can have a job and have a small team. A job, in my definition, is when the business is reliant on the broker when it becomes to the day-to-day, right? So it means if the broker goes away for a long weekend, maybe 3 or 4 days, when they come back, pretty much everything was where it was. Where we're really trying to help brokers build a business, right? So that when they go away for a long weekend, things are moving forward. Will they move at the same pace than if the broker was in the seat there on the Friday? Maybe not. But if you can get a business that's continually evolving and progressing ahead, that's something to aspire towards, because then that allows you as the broker to look to continually replace yourself. Some of the best high-performing brokers that I've seen come into the industry, they have this reflection around, is this something I need to be doing? And if it's not, is it something that I can either outsource? Can I delegate to another team member? Can there be a piece of technology or automation? And I think that's a really, really powerful way to look at your business, and rather than sitting there going, we need to do it this way because it's the way we've done it. I think technology is evolving faster than we've ever seen. And I think it's about how we can embrace that to get the most out of your day, whether it's for you as a client or your team internally. I think that's got to be what every business owner should be looking at right now.
Yeah, and like you said, because as we have always talked about, it's like systems, people, and process. And when we think about systems with the people, that like as in you can do the lead generation or you can do the ideation. So when I say ideation, you've done all the pre-marketing systems processes. You've worked with the marketing teams and everything to make your funnels work, because that's what you do as the broker. You know your audience better than somebody else. But then you've actually systemized the way you work to the point that someone else can do the discovery call.
Yes.
And once they can do that discovery call, then you have your back office doing the qualification process. And then when that system's running, it's someone else doing the, post-settlement follow-up and follow-through and making sure that the customer satisfaction is all there.
Totally. And then it just opens up for a new opportunity. Like, I think sometimes it's, I love the big thing that brokers, lots of brokers will continually say as we're working with them, guess what? You haven't told me or shown me or done anything that I didn't know how to do. But the great thing about us working together is you actually have gone and done it for me. And then the benefit of that is then they're allowed to refocus their energy where they need to focus it on. I often see brokers, they're spending, staying up late at night doing pricing requests or valuations. And these are tasks that you could build a team to do for. We're a massive advocate for brokers building teams. We've got a hybrid team ourselves between onshore and offshore, and it's something that I'm truly passionate about. I think I got my first offshore team member coming on 13 years ago, and I haven't looked back. And everybody can sit there and say that they've had a good experience or a bad experience. I think it's an opportunity for you to really reflect on you as a leader, more importantly. And then secondly to that is, what systems and processes did you have in place? Because where we see businesses challenge growing their team, it doesn't matter if they're hiring somebody to sit in an office beside them or somebody that might be offshore. The challenge is normally within. It's normally not external. And that's where we try and really help people get that framework and get that foundation set up properly.
I couldn't agree more. And I think those foundations, what you're saying is I guess the key parts, because whether you have onshore and offshore, and I think you need to balance that both, especially in the broker world. It is all relationships, and people need to know that they're talking to real humans who are handling real things, because, finances are
scary, daunting. It's not as easy as we think, but I think when you get the right team members, and that the keys that we've seen to success in building an offshore team in particular is clear job descriptions, clear KPIs, check-ins, like all this really simple stuff that we just as we grow we seem to forget and neglect. And I think that that's probably the part for a leader or somebody who wants to take their business to the next level, to really look at, are they doing the basics? One of my favorite fundamentals is always, why is McDonald's so successful? No matter where you are in Australia or the world, normally walk in, get a Big Mac, if that's your choice, or a cheeky cheesy, I don't mind, but it's normally the same output every time, and that's the sign of a successful business. And I think that's what every broker in business should be aspiring for. It's the same output, no matter who is working on the deal, who brought in the deal, that the customer has the same experience. We all know what we get when we go to Macca's. And that's the reason why they continually grow. And I find it even more exciting and interesting. They've got a 15-year-old doing it. So this idea of you need to have somebody on this massive salary or something like that, I'll continually try and challenge those, those limiting beliefs around brokers. Is what you need what you think you need? Because everybody's continually, when they're looking to try and grow their team, they're looking for unicorns. Unfortunately, I haven't found many yet. I found a couple gems or a couple nuggets, especially within my business. And lots of my clients will actually interact with my team more than they'll interact with me. Sometimes it makes me a little bit hurt or sad because I think they don't love me anymore. But I think it's actually a really good sign that I've built something that's greater than me. And I think people that want to build a brokerage, it's not about just them. It's about something greater. And that's why I really get excited about this industry. I'm excited to see where it's going to go in the next 5 years.
Yes, and as you said, you might get butt hurt, but that's the whole purpose, so that you can, have that team to support you. And I guess this is some of the frameworks that you were just saying, having a job description, but having a job description also actually helps you identify some key aspects, not only about you as a leader, but what you want in your team in their capability. Because I think the capabilities is, sometimes you can look at like knowledge, and having great knowledge is wonderful, especially in this industry. But if they don't have the right personality either, or capacity to handle stress in a certain way, they're not going to be a great team member. So you're going to look for, within this job description, able to work autonomously, those types of key skills.
Totally. I think also too, we always find brokers are trying to hire when it's too late, if that makes sense. So they're beyond capacity, their team members beyond capacity, so they're trying to plug a hole. The problem is when you're trying to plug a hole, what plug are you looking for in the first place? And then secondly, a lot of people get the blinders on. I think when you're hiring a team member, you've got to be really objective, and then making that sure that that person is going to be the right fit, And I think that's not necessarily thought about enough. People are just trying to get through today, and they've always, they're just hiring reactively, where our goal is, we say to all of our clients, you want your team to be operating at 80%. Because if they're operating at 80%, then you're building more and more capacity. Yes, there's going to be times where you're going to redline, and hopefully those times are calculated, and so that you've got provisions for this into the future. Some of our clients that are going into a period where it's the busiest period they've had, the great thing about it is we've hired and onboarded their team members 8 or 12 weeks ago. So that as they're redlining, guess what? The capacity is building and building and building, rather than if we just got through, we could have still probably got through the same volume with the existing team and not grown the team. The question I'd then ask them is, what's going to be left at the end of it? Because you can't redline forever. It's just not possible.
No, and it comes back to what we were talking earlier about sustainability. From an energy point of view, because as in, if you redline, then your customers and everything around that whole part of your business and service suffers as a result. And so when I guess it comes to finding great team members, how do you know when is the right time to start?
Great question. Before you think is normally the thing. Before you think, before you think, I think there's normally a metric that people have in mind. And it's normally a dollar figure. I sit there and try and say, blow that out of the water, because if you bring somebody into your business, that whatever that mark is, it's going to be surpassed very quickly. So I'd sit there and say is, once you start getting to the point that you're feeling exhausted or you're not excited and you're getting the Monday anxiety, that's probably the first sign of you need to actually look to start growing your team. And when I say start growing your team, it doesn't necessarily always have to be around getting more bums on seats. Sometimes it's about re-looking at your process. Is it documented? Because if your process is not documented, you can't analyze it, and then more importantly, optimize it. I think the high performers that we work with, at least twice a year, they're just going back to review their process. Are they reinventing the wheel, or is it all changing? No. All they're looking for is a micro improvement. So if they can get a % improvement here, a % improvement there, if you're doing a couple hundred applications a year, that can be life-changing in relation to that. We also look to make sure that there's clear roles and responsibilities, and then rather than hiring a more senior person within outside the business, I'm always about trying to empower and grow internally. Is there some sort of training apparatus or mechanism that we can do to upskill a team member and then replace underneath? Because I think that's a really good way to build culture, loyalty, just longevity. I think that's a really big thing. I think it's really great when you hear about a broker that's got a team of 3 or 4 people, and I ask them, how long's this shortest employee, and they're telling me 2 or 3 years. Like that, to me, that's sexy. I don't want to, like when they're saying their most recent employee is 2 or 3 weeks, and then the one before that's another 2 or 3 weeks because they've lost a few people. I think it's a great opportunity for them to go to look into the mirror, other than themselves as leadership or leadership style, or how the business is operating. Because if it is running at that chaotic pace, it's understandable why they're losing some great talent sometimes.
Yeah, and I guess finding great team members can somewhat be called easy, but if you aren't a great leader for a great team member, that's where the wheels do fall off.
Totally. One of my favorite leadership books is John Maxwell, 5 Levels of Leadership. Have you ever read that one?
Yeah.
That is one of my all-time favorites. And it's kind of something that I'm always trying to instill in myself, is a great leader is just trying to replace themselves. Because as you replace yourself, you're just freeing yourself up for more and more opportunities. And I think that if you're not trying to replace yourself, you're either leaving money on the table, and it might not be money, it might be time. And time has a value as well. So I think it's really important for you to, within your business, to kind of sit back and go, how can I replace myself to do something more powerful and more meaningful? Just being really clear, what is your northern light? And I think, I've got a personal goal that I have is I want to build a broker that wants to write $100 million a year and only work 8 hours a week. I think it is 100% possible. I haven't done it yet, but I think it's possible. And I think it's done with, having great structure, being really clear on where your non-negotiables are, organization, and just really narrowing in on that. What will they do with the other, 30 hours? That's down for them to do, but I do believe it's possible, and I'm going to do that before the end of my career, build a broker that writes 100 mil doing 8 hours a week. And I promise it's going to be more than one loan. It's going to be more than one loan.
I was doing some market research just on the industry alone, and it is a roughly, I think, a $10 billion industry between mortgage, commercial, and asset, like as in all of it together, or somewhere around that. And so I think, like you said, as long as you're probably like diversifying your funnel or vertical of options, it is completely doable. I would agree, because the more I think about like where finance is going, and especially in commercial, and the avenues that are opening up in the world of commercial, I can see you getting there with your broker.
No, I'm excited. I think it'll be, and I think it's the thing that I find so in this industry, I love that there's the old status quo is continually being broken down. And I just love that, because I think innovation is just finding a problem and solving it. And sometimes the problems that we're solving are small. They don't have to be grand. And I love that we're getting some of these new up-and-comers that are coming into the industry. And we thought that the old way to be a successful mortgage broker was having a banking or an accounting degree, and to be coming through some sort of traditional pathway, where we're seeing some really young up-and-comers coming in and smashing through those ceilings. and they don't come from a traditional background. I think that's the part that I'm excited about, because I think they're going to bring new ways of doing things. And I think every broker should be thinking about, is there a new way to do it? Instead of writing with your right hand, write with your left, see how you go for a few days, sprout some new ideas.
Yes. And I guess this is where, one, how do you find a great team member? Sure, it comes down to you being a great leader and having great systems and processes in place. But like you said, new up and comers are coming through. Opportunities to make 100 million in a year using less than 8 hours a week, also possible because of AI. And you can have AI agents running some of your systems and processes for you. Obviously, you will always want to have a human intervention in that process, but again, it's that whole.
And I think that brokers need to be trying to think about this sort of stuff, because we all know banks are investing heavily in this. Open banking over the next 12 months, I think it's going to change the whole lending landscape. I think a really big part that we've been vocal on, especially for brokers over the last 2 or 3 years, is building a digital experience. If you can't do from your mobile, if a customer can't interact with you from your mobile phone, from their mobile phone on the couch, there's actually probably some sort of concern. And when I say interact with you, there's a number of different tools to gather, a fact find through your mobile phone, keeping them up to date, whether it's through text message or email. Everything should be a, digitized experience. And I think lots of brokers are not doing that stuff. And that's the concern that I have in the future, is that a customer has this perception, if they haven't heard anything, what do they think? Nothing's happening. We all know that's not necessarily the case. So can you automate some communication with your customer? And I think that we really want brokers to kind of double down that on into the future.
Yeah. I was going to go down, like my whole head now is like, yes, systems technology, because you and I talk about this all the time. So we go through this because we live the systems, we live the processes, we build them. So we know that when a phone call is made, that it should go into a CRM of sort. And when that goes into a CRM, they should mark it up and blah, blah, blah. But then there needs to be a handover to either another person within your team to do some sort of like pre-research on the client, or maybe a fair idea of what they're doing. But then it needs to go, that information that they've collected needs to go somewhere. And that's either back into the CRM or your fact find or wherever it is. But then you start that fact find and document collection process if you haven't done like what I call a pre-collection process.
Yes, like a pre-qualification.
Yeah. And so then that's where so we've got 2 pieces of technology. We've got 2 humans in the process so far. And then, it's just expanding and delivering on that. But then you have what we call the front end, which is your marketing side of things, which is more technology, which we're not going to get down those rabbit holes at all. With technology, with people, with process, I think you can really optimize your business. And whether you want to spend 8 hours to get to 100 million or even like 20 hours, that is still an incredible way to run your operations.
Totally. I think it's, I think everybody's aspiration should be that they can take a 8-week holiday and just check in on their business once a day. Like that should be your aspiration. And that's if you choose to check in, with the idea that you don't need to check in. But imagine being able to have 8 weeks off and you're still writing, equivalent volumes to what you were writing before, and you're just checking in to make sure the lights are on. I think that's an aspiration, and we help businesses do that every single day. Does it happen overnight? Unfortunately not. But is it possible? The answer to that is yes. And it is far simpler than you believe, as long as you're willing. Because if you're not willing to kind of put yourself in the uncomfortable, learn the new way. We always say that when we're trying to change a process, guess what? At the start, it feels so foreign. And then, 2 or 3 days in, it even feels worse. Then a week, you're like, holy crap, I want to go back to the old way. That's not the way to evolve. And it's not the way, because if the old way worked, we probably wouldn't be having a conversation in the first instance. So you've got to really kind of run at the suck, really double down. And then guess what? The old way becomes the new way. And that becomes the new normal. And then the moment that I love is when I get have a conversation with a client of ours, a broker who's writing more, they're writing more volume in less amount of time. And then they say, I should have done this sooner. And I'm like, yes. And I think everybody can sit there and go, yes, they should have, but it's by making the choice to do it now. Like whatever was in the past is history. You know, what you want to do into the future is your own destiny. And what we see with that is you've got to have a framework in place. And you've got to have that foundational stuff, because if you don't, it's just an idea. It always comes down, you know, we focus very heavily on implementation because everyone's got a good idea, but an idea is not useful unless you execute on it. And that's where I think, you know, you and I very much have a very big similarity in, you know, what we get passionate about. It's not just about ideas, it's about bringing them to life. And I think that's the exciting part around watching businesses grow.
Yeah, and I think we love what we call simplifying the process. So I think both you and I, we see chaos and go, no thanks, not for me. Like, as in, I love organizing it, and if I can put it like a cap on it and you know, shuffle it along. Like if I see a tornado, I'm like, hey, tornado, let's just sort you out so that you're not so crazy.
Then put a little pretty bow on it at the end, and you're like, job's done.
Because tornadoes actually are valuable. They do a lot of cleaning up of the debris, you know what I mean, as they move along. But they can't just stay where they are in that one place, because they need to be sorted and organized.
Totally. And then also probably the part where I think I try and really help educate them, especially, is the awareness piece. Because once you start educating people about the awareness, you know, their feelings and emotions around what they're seeing or what they've gone through in that tornado piece, and then they tell me how much it sucked and how much they don't want it to happen again, then it's just about educating them about the indicators and whether we need to realize what are we solving? Is it a process problem? Is it a people problem? Is it a technology problem? And then focusing their energy in the right place rather than the wrong place. Because I come across a lot of people, they love to hire, they hate to fire, so sometimes they got a bit of dead wood and they're not growing. And I think, you know, we're in a fortunate industry where our profit margin should be increasing, but as the trail increases and complexity hits, they're just treading water. I think that treading water is it's not the place that I want to be. I always want to be improving, even if it's microscopic.
And if you can, well, I'm going to go down more rabbit holes, but I think I should probably pause the pod there, because at the end of the day, if people do want to go down a rabbit hole, they can go to auctuscoaching.com.au, is it?
Yes, optuscoaching.com.au. Or just come and find me on LinkedIn. It's my only social. I'm always trying to share as much knowledge. I think it was a GM from an aggregator said to me, he said, what good is knowledge if you don't share it? I try and share as much knowledge as I can, because my philosophy and the reason why I do what I do is I want the end user, which is the customer, to have a better experience. And if we can help brokers be better, guess what? We help more customers. And I love that we're winning the battle in market share, but the war is not over. And I think brokers need to continue to find new ways to enhance the customer experience so that we keep being the preferred choice when it comes to any sort of lending into the future.
I think that's the key thing, because I was going to say this a moment ago, but I know we will go down rabbit holes talking about mental health and well-being. But if you have your health and your mental health kind of sorted, like knowing where you want to go, knowing how you want to run your business, having the team and the culture because you are living it within yourself, this is where those whole people, process and technology will come together, because you're running from I guess a healthy energy.
100%. I think every high performer that we work with, they've all got some very key things in place. They are a structure, they are a team, and there's and then they allocate time for their wellness. And wellness to everybody can be completely different. It can be going to the gym, it could be reading, it could be meditating, it could be family time. But if you don't make time for something, so you don't map out an ideal week for you, guess what? It just doesn't happen, because you'll always have something else to chase after. So we try and say is make sure you get those 3 pillars in place to make sure you're able to grow. And we've said it a few times, is sustainably.
Yeah. And this is the key to finding the growth that you want, the team that you want, and the lifestyle that you want.
100%.
Okay. Well, thank you guys for listening to us. If you have questions, feel free to reach out. If you want to go down a rabbit hole again with Christian, feel free to reach out to him on LinkedIn or go to auctuscoaching.com.au. Catch you later.
Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Hey, I'm so glad you're still here. I would love to say that there is a follow-up conversation with Christian and I, and sadly we decided to go over to somewhere else and I didn't record that conversation. So I don't have a behind-the-scenes chat with Christian, but I'm sure we'll make one. So I hope you enjoyed this series. Again, always send feedback because I love it.
Yeah, there's lots of little nuggets of gold to go out to the broking community.